Look, it's not that you're lazy, it's not that you're unmotivated, and it's not that you don't have enough time. And it's not that you just need to be more disciplined. And here's why. The number one mental barrier holding most entrepreneurs back isn't a lack of hustle, and it's not a lack of intelligence, and it's not even a lack of opportunity. It's a specific internal pattern that shows up in different disguises. Stuff like overthinking, hesitation, perfectionism, procrastination, inconsistency, research mode, second guessing, and it quietly keeps you stuck at the same level even while you're putting in real effort. And if you've been feeling like you're doing a lot but not moving the needle forward at a pace you know you should, I want you to listen closely because what I'm about to explain is going to feel like someone finally putting words to what you've been experiencing. Hi, I'm Christian Graham, co-founder of Americross Media and the MK Lab, and I help brands and businesses scale their authority and demand online. And I know this because I've been there too. Here's what most entrepreneurs don't realize. The biggest threat to your growth isn't that you're not doing enough. It's that you're trapped in a loop where you keep trying to eliminate uncertainty before you take action. You keep trying to feel ready before you actually move. And you keep trying to make the plan perfect before you execute. You keep trying to protect your identity from failure. And that loop right there, that's the barrier. Because entrepreneurship is not a certainty game, it's a decision game. Your ability to win is directly connected to your ability to make decisions in the presence of uncertainty and keep moving. Most people can't. In business, protection looks like progress while it's actually delay. Let me show you how it plays out. You get an idea, you feel energy, you start mapping it out, then you hit a decision. What niche, what offer, what pricing, what platform, right? What ad strategy, what content direction do I need to take this? And instead of deciding, you start searching, you start scrolling, you watch the videos, you ask people, you read threads, you collect opinions, and then you tell yourself that you're being responsible. But what's really happening is you're trying to outsource your certainty. You're trying to remove the risk of being wrong, and you're trying to avoid the emotional cost of making a decision that doesn't work out. So you stay in preparation mode. And preparation mode is the most socially acceptable form of procrastination, right? This is why so many talented entrepreneurs plateau. Not because they don't know what to do, but because they can't tolerate the feeling of not knowing if it will work. So what do? They delay, right? They refine, they tweak, they restart, they rebrand, or rebuild. The real cost of that is not the time that they wasted, it's the confidence they bleed out every time they don't follow through. Every time you hesitate, your brain learns a dangerous lesson. I can't trust myself to execute. And that's why the mental barrier is so expensive, because it doesn't just delay your business, it erodes your identity as a leader. Now, let's address the objections that come up right here. You're thinking, but I really don't have time. You might not have time for everything, and that's true, but you have time for what you prioritize. And the real issue is not time, it's focus. If your day is filled with low leverage tasks, your brain never gets the win of progress, and you start believing you're stuck. You're thinking, but I need to learn more first. Yes, you need knowledge, but at a certain point, learning becomes avoidance. You can't think your way into confidence. You act your way into confidence. The skill isn't knowing everything. The skill is knowing what matters most next. You're thinking, but my market is saturated. Saturation doesn't kill businesses. Lack of differentiation does. And differentiation is not a branding trick. It's your point of view forged through execution. You can't differentiate with theory. You differentiate with results and clarity earned through reps. You're thinking, but I've tried before and it didn't work. That's not evidence that you can't win. That's evidence you haven't built a repeatable system yet. And most people confuse a failed attempt with a failed identity. They start saying, I'm not that kind of person who succeeds at this. That story becomes your cage. And so what the number one mental barrier is this. You're trying to protect yourself from the discomfort of being a beginner while simultaneously wanting the outcomes of someone who mastered the game already. You want the rewards of repetition without the discomfort of the reps. And you want the confidence of evidence without the vulnerability of execution. You want the certainty before the commitment. And that mental contract will keep you stuck forever. Because the only way out is to reverse that order. Commitment comes first, evidence comes second, confidence comes third, and the reason that's hard is because it requires a different internal operating system. See, most entrepreneurs are not failing because they don't have tactics. They're failing because they don't have the strategy of self-trust and self-control. They don't trust themselves to decide. They don't trust themselves to follow through. They don't trust themselves to keep going when it becomes uncomfortable, and it will become uncomfortable. So they keep looking for a new tactic to avoid the internal work. But here's the pivot. If you want to grow as an entrepreneur, you have to stop asking, how do I guarantee success? And start asking, how do I become the person who can't be stopped by the uncertainty? You see, that's a completely different question. That's the question that builds leaders. That's the question that rewires your mind. Because the goal isn't to eliminate the uncertainty. The uncertainty is going to be there. The only one that knows is God. So the goal is to increase your capacity to act in it. And once you understand that, you stop needing motivation and you start to build a system. So now I'm going to show you how to rewire this mental barrier practically. Not with affirmations, not with vague mindset talk or motivational talk, but with a repeatable process that you can run this week. Here's the rewiring CALM framework. C is for clarity, A is for action, L is for learn, and M is for momentum. Clarity means you decide what matters most next. Not what matters forever, just what matters next. Most people get paralyzed because they're trying to create a map a year when they can't even execute a week. So here's your first rewiring move. You need to shrink the timeline. Ask, what is the next most important move I can make in the next 7 days that would create progress? Action means you do the thing before you feel ready to do it. This is where self-trust is built. You build evidence that you are safe to follow. And every time you break a promise to yourself, you reinforce hesitation. So the action step is simple. Choose a small promise you can keep to yourself and to God daily. Not a massive transformation, a small, consistent win. Learn means you treat your execution like data, not drama. You see, most entrepreneurs attach their identity to their outcomes. And if it works, they're gifted. If it doesn't, they're broken. That's emotional immaturity disguised as ambition. A real operator says, that worked, that didn't, and here's why. What's the adjustment? No shame, no spiral, just learning. And momentum means that you repeat what works and remove what doesn't. Momentum is not intensity. Momentum is consistency. It's what happens when you stop restarting your life every single Monday. Now let me land this. The number one mental barrier holding entrepreneurs back is the need for certainty before action. And the way you rewire it isn't by thinking differently first, it's by acting consistently enough to create that self-trust. You don't need more hype, you need a disciplined system. If this hit you, here's what I want you to do next. Comment the word calm if you're ready to stop negotiating with uncertainty and start building on that momentum. And subscribe if you want more frameworks on entrepreneurship, self-leadership, and building authority and demand online. Without the fluff, without the motivation, and without burning out. Until next time, steward more, stress less. Thank me later. Peace.